Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hello and welcome to the Dork Forest, you guys. Who knows what the sound is like on this, because my kitchen is all tore up and I just sort of jerry-rigged something. So it's a great episode. This is the Dork Forest, and let's do the credits. Patrick Brady's going to fix this audio to the best of his ability with what he has been given. And Mike Rickberg composed and sang that song you just heard. He sings it with his wife, Sarah. He will sing again at the end his words to the Mexican hat dance. And Vilmos fixes the website, JackieCation.com. There are several websites, JackieCation.com, DorkForest.com. The program itself is available on iTunes and Stitcher, and it's under the umbrella of allthingscomedy.com. So if you're ever looking for more pods, go over there. It's Al Madrigal and Bill Burr and Aaron Foley and Tom Papa, a bunch of great pods over there. So let's see. It is January still, and of 2017, and I've done the credits. At the website, JackieCation.com and DorkForest.com, there's an opportunity to donate to the show. If you like the show, feel free to throw some cash towards me. There is an Amazon banner, a link. It's essentially just a portal to Amazon through JackieCation.com or DorkForest.com. It's just a straight up link over there. And it just brings you to Amazon. You order as normal, and the Dork Forest gets a bit of a kickback. Doesn't cost you extra. It's not like the donation button where you are actually donating money. JackieCation.com also has on it the merch page, the store, where you can get T-shirts of the Dork Forest. You can get my stand-up T-shirt, and you can get my stand-up CDs and DVD. That is all available there. They're all union-made here in the United States, and shipping is included. So, other than that, there's my schedules over there. I'm home. I'm in Los Angeles this week, lying down and doing sets at night. And that's what that's going to be like. And who knows what else is happening. But by God, let's start this week's episode before Tim Harmston explodes from dorktasticness. Hey, just Jackie Cation. I'm in my living room with Tim Harmston, friend of the show.
Hey,
was
Jackie.
it Packers last time?
We did Packers, and
Nate Craig just did the Packers again, but it was like 4 years ago. You and I did it.
Yeah, no, it was 5 years ago because it was at the Acme 20th.
Oh, that's
anniversary
right.
party.
20th anniversary. I thought you were going to tell me it was 5 years ago, because that was the year that guy threw the football to that other guy.
No,
what happened 5 years ago in Packer? Could you name?
We won the Super Bowl
2010?
In 2010, yeah.
Oh, so it was a good year.
Or 2011 was the actual date of the Super Bowl. Yeah, it was a great year. That was our last Super Bowl. So
and this could be another one.
We could be on the verge of another one. Knock on wood.
Particle board.
Yeah.
This house is full of particle board, Tim Harmston, and we're under construction.
Yeah. Well, I like how you explained how it works, because it felt like it was a procedure. You were like, okay, here's how it works. You'll know it'll be over before you know it.
Oh, this is the Dork Forest. Yeah.
And then you'll walk out with a free T-shirt.
And then you'll walk out with a sweet, sweet Ranger T-shirt or a Brett.
Doctors should give T-shirts, right?
Yeah. Oh, I wish they would just be on time. I walked out of the dentist yesterday because I was told I got there 20 minutes early as per usual to everything. And then and then I was like, hey, could she see me now? And the woman just snarkily said, No, it's a 45-minute session. She's doing one right now. We run on time. And so at 10 after 2, I was supposed to be 10 minutes into my 45-minute session. I said, well, I'm leaving. And she was like, well, we're going to have to charge you. And I said, take me to small claims court, do whatever you want. I'm not going to sit around. I was like, I had so much bullshit to do.
Yeah.
So I'm only home for 4 days.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend 45 minutes of it getting my teeth cleaned. Sure.
Yeah. No, not today.
It's a great story, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop telling it. I'm totally Tim Harmston. It's at Tim Harmston on Twitter and Instagram, and then timharmston.com.
Yeah.
And you, a stand-up comic
I'm a
that I've
stand-up
known
comedian
for these many years,
Yeah.
and you're fucking hilarious.
Thank you. Yeah.
Here's the good news. We're going to talk. You're from Wisconsin.
Yes. Far western Wisconsin.
So western, it's almost Minnesota.
It's almost the Twin Cities.
So that's why your dorkdom today on the Dork Forest with Tim Harmston is
Prince,
the musician.
Yeah.
Again, little Corvette. That's all I got. Little red Corvette.
Is that all you have?
I think that's all. I saw the movie Purple Rain.
Wow.
And Andy has all of the albums.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
Yeah.
He told me this morning, by the way, Andy Ashcraft, that he's getting a Bowie Princess Leia. He's getting that Rebel tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting it.
Does he have any other tattoos?
He has 2 other tattoos, and because I have a joke about me not being tattoo people, I think it has slowed down his tattooing of his own body. Well, it is, of course, his body. Do whatever you want to it.
It's funny that let's set this up. We had a nice breakfast the other day, a comedy breakfast. And you said, would you like to come on the show? And of course I perked up. I was like, yes, of course. I'm here. I want to do everything I can do.
And,
And then and you said, well, what are you talking about? And for like a minute, my head went through a scan. Like, well, it's football, and then no, Prince. That's all I've been thinking about. It's
Have you been thinking about Prince a lot since he died?
All I've been thinking about. It is.
I know he died.
Yeah, and it's a perfect subject for the Dork Forest because it's something that people. There are many people of all stripes and age ranges that are Prince fanatics, and it's an amazing phenomena that his sort of universal popularity kind of crescendoed, let's say, in the Purple Rain era. And then
what was that, middle 90s, early 90s?
Purple Rain was in 1984.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and so
was it re-released? Why did I see it in 94?
Well, the height of his popularity was between let's say Little Red Corvette, which came out in 1982.
Right.
And
which I remember from church camp.
Right.
Hi, guys.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. It was the anthem of that church camp
it was the anthem
summer.
of church camp, a sports weekend. That's what they called it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So the height of his popularity was really for only about 6 years between, and then maybe if you count
82 to 88,
the Batman soundtrack, the Tim Burton Batman soundtrack.
Right. Oh, wait. Wow.
Yeah. And Sign of the
starred
Times.
was that the Clooney?
Was Michael Keaton.
Oh, it was Michael Keaton.
Kim Basinger and Jack Nicholson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was the good one.
Yeah, and Prince was on Warner Brothers at the time, and they were having difficulties in their relationship, and I think this was one way that I'm sure the real details will never come out, but this is one way he sort of assuaged some angst between the.
Oh, they were like, "Fine, I'll do this."
Yeah, like fine, I'll do your.
You
stupid
think
movie.
it was? Wait, it was I would have called it a favor the other way, but Prince was such a big deal.
Yeah.
That they're like, no, I'll do you a favor and do your weird movie.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a chess piece move where it's like, all right, fine, I'll do this if you let me out of this obligation or whatever. And so anyway, but it ended up being a spectacular success at the box office and a spectacular soundtrack. But that was really it. If you think of Prince in terms of like the
hits,
the burning star that he was.
Yeah.
And then after Purple Rain came out in 84 and people really thought, okay, he's going to follow this up with a crazy effort and this party's going to keep on rolling. And then after Purple Rain, Prince just did what he wanted to do from that point on. He didn't do anything solely for hits or commercial success. He had already kind of experienced that, and he thus began the journey of the people that were huge fans stuck on, but people that just kind of got swept into the mainstream hysteria of Purple Rain. A lot of those people kind of tuned out because his next album sold about, I think it was like 5 million copies, where Purple Rain sold tens of millions of copies.
Okay.
And so I was one of the people that continued on the Prince train.
Okay.
And I've never gotten off the Prince train, but he released 39 albums. And and many of those he would make it really hard to get. Like some of them were web releases, some of them were, he would
show up to Angkor Wat in Vietnam or Cambodia or Laos, I forget where it is, and then look inside this one
there will
under
be
this rock.
a jade box with a and he would and that was one of the beefs with Warner Brothers, was they were like, hey, slow down, you're releasing music too fast, why don't you take your time and crank out some hits? And Prince was like, no, I just want to keep pumping out music, this is what I do, I'm a music machine.
Oh really?
Yeah,
that's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, well,
the idea that he was just like, I want there to be plenty of content for people to consume, and I want to move on to other things if I want.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Yeah, well, and historically, we'll look back, and he will be known as the great artist that he was, but he'll also be known, I think, as one of the pioneers of content expedition. Like he would pump out more content than anybody thought possible. And then when the internet came around, he was the first artist to release an entire album online, and he won.
Oh really?
Which
one was that?
It was which one was that? It was,
I printed out a disc.
Yeah, that was
so you could reference it easier.
It was,
would it have been 90?
It was 98, and it was
98.
Yeah, it was 98. It was Crystal Ball.
Okay.
Yeah, Crystal Ball. And Crystal Ball came out, and you could buy it on his website, and that was the first time. And so he won. You know what the Webby Awards are? Yeah, he won it was like a lifetime achievement for the Webby Awards, because he was the first person to distribute his own content and circumvent the album or the record label process.
Right.
And so that's kind of an interest. That will be a more interesting historical footnote, I think, years from now. Now nobody really cares. But and people,
no, I think that's kind of. I mean, the thing is it's the art that was important to him, obviously. And once you have made enough money that the passive income of royalties pays your bills, you can genuinely, without any, and he could have felt obligated to the fans, to crank out more hits, to play like Billy Joel playing the piano forever, then going, I can't play the piano anymore. I gotta go. I gotta.
Right.
It's But so Prince he was like, I'm gonna do content which will, people will like it if they like it, and it'll sell if it sells. But and
as you know, and I'm a.
It's interesting that he just had to create.
Yeah, and it was all for the love of music. Like that was his heart and soul, was just music. And some people say that he he got married twice. He had 2 marriages, and he got divorced twice. Oh. And he had a child, but it passed away shortly after birth. It had some severe birth defects. But people say that music was paramount in his life, so he never really had the kind of relationships that some musicians have, where you have a family and you have, kids and they go to school and, but
he's not Frank Zappa.
Yeah,
he doesn't have 4 kids and a wife who's irritated with him.
Yeah, and he lived in a mysterious box,
purple box outside of Minneapolis.
Yeah, outside of Minneapolis, and that's.
Did you ever go? What was the name of the?
It's called Paisley Park.
Oh, that's right.
Studios, yeah, and I drove by it on. And
numerous... was it a house and a studio?
Well, the first time I drove by it, I was looking for like a purple, like a purple Taj Mahal or something, and it was really just a very nondescript white kind of warehouse. It looked like any studio that you might see in
like a kennel, like a box.
Yeah, like just a white box, and had a little pyramid shaped glass what do you call it, window at the top, so that when he was home, a purple light would shoot out sometimes.
Oh my god!
Like the Luxor.
What the fuck? Like the Pope?
Yeah.
Or the Queen?
Yeah. Apparently, he'd had fun with that when he first moved in, and then I don't think he did that forever. But that was kind of a joke.
I'm sure his butler was like, "No, I'm going to keep doing it." I want Prince to have a butler, by the way. Did he have a butler?
Oh, Any idea? Yeah, he had a number of people that worked for him or with him, and he fired a lot of people. And
did he?
Yeah, but he was, but you know, and the thing about his death is that when he was obviously a very private person and mysterious, and when he died, it opened up a floodgate of people with stories, people that were maybe too afraid to say their stories publicly.
Oh.
And so the internet has just basically flooded since April, just flooded with anecdotes,
information,
and stories, and videos, and as you may or may not know, he had a death grip on YouTube content about him or featuring him or his videos, or, bootlegs, anything. He didn't want.
He only wanted to control.
He wanted to control every bit of his online presence.
Okay.
And so when he passed away, I don't know who was it, if he had a lawyer or somebody, or maybe it was just the sheer flood of videos that came on that would be impossible to litigate or stop or whatever. So within a few days of his passing, the internet just flooded with brand new Prince videos, and it became like a
golden age for Tim Harmston.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God.
Well, yeah, and it was like simultaneously a way to grieve his passing was to watch his content, and that you had always wished that you could see, like that one concert he did in Paris in 1984, or those, that one bootleg of the First Avenue performance he did in 1983, and and so it's become almost a nightly ritual for me to turn on and just search and see if anything new pops up. And every night, it seems like every day
something does.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's really great. I mean, and it's.
So they have him playing with dogs like Hitler. You're just like, you thought he was mysterious and hated everyone, but here he is, making an ice cream cone for a child.
But I did notice. I was just doing some research last night, and I did notice that later on in his life, Prince really got into bicycling, and so he would take his bicycle around Chanhassen, which is where his home was in, Paisley Park. And
did he ever go to the dinner theater there?
Well, yeah, I'm sure he did. I'm sure he owned it under some pseudonym. But no, he would take his bicycle out, and he would go to Office Max. He would go to Ace Hardware. He would, there was a strip.
Like people recognize him.
And people.
Because he is a tiny, beautiful man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a tiny, beautiful man. Completely, recognizable in every sense, because he was like at 5'2", and he had a big purple afro at the end. Not purple afro. He'd have like a purple sweatsuit, and, and sunglasses and an afro, and you'd know exactly who it was.
Okay.
But
was he rocking an afro in the last?
Oh yeah.
Years?
Yeah. The last few years. Yeah.
Yeah.
But but a lot of the pictures of him on his bicycle are from behind. And I noticed, and I just thought to myself, like, it's sort of like the ultimate Minnesota deference to Prince. Like I'll take a photo of you, but I will wait till you pass. Like he's royalty.
And then I'll try to explain to somebody that no, it is Prince. It is. Did anyone care what kind of bike he was riding? Was it a Trek?
He had 4 bicycles.
I had 4. Yeah, they did care.
2 white cruisers.
Yeah.
And a black bike, and more like a black mountain bike.
Okay.
And I forget what the other one was. Maybe like a 10-speed.
Like a Sears 10-speed.
But there was a rumor floating around, and this blew my mind. I mean, honestly, like that they found a custom painted BMX bike and several BMX tapes, like BMX, tapes of like tricks and different riding in his vault. And if that's true, then we really were soulmates, because like that was my whole thing with BMX growing up.
Like a BMX, like ET bikes, like the bikes from ET.
Yeah, well, you see at Venice Beach people doing tricks on their BMX
with the extra
bikes.
pipe on the side of so they can grind and stuff.
Yeah, they can do tricks. Yeah.
Because there's skateboarding, there's inline, and there's BMX trick bikes. And so
freestyle.
The rumor is that he had one of those.
Yeah.
And there's tape of him possibly doing tricks or trying to learn.
Yeah.
Oh, that is. Turns out he was a whole person, like biking and What other info has come out about?
Well, aside from the big story of his musical vaults, and I don't know, I always wonder if that's like a hard drive or what a musical, or tapes maybe.
Oh, right, because he's got unpublished
Yeah,
like a billion hours of unpublished songs and stuff.
Estimates are between 500 and 20,000 unreleased songs or parts of songs or whatever. Yeah, and so he was really prolific in that sense. And
who will curate?
Yeah, well, and I think that's the thing too, is that I hope that they appoint a special curator to that, like Questlove or somebody who really who knows music, or Terry Lewis or Jimmy Jam, or somebody who can,
like a Christopher Tolkien, to take over J.R.R. Tolkien stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's I mean, this stuff is going to take years to the estate, because he didn't have a will. And so,
everybody should get a will. I don't have one. I have no plan. It all goes to Andy.
Right.
But I don't have a plan.
Well, and that's what Prince said. He goes, why would I need a will? I'm going to live forever. And that's.
Oh, no, I don't assume I'm going to live forever. I just assume that it's a pain in the ass.
Wills might be obsolete by the time we get done with our next president.
Oh my God. It's, sure. I'm going to get a water.
But I thought that maybe your listeners would, they're all over the world, I'm guessing. So you need, and being a Minneapolis resident, I think I have somewhat of a unique perspective of how Prince affected Minnesota and Minneapolis.
How did Prince? I mean, I understand that the day he died, there was like, people just went out in the streets.
Yeah. And
which kind of chokes me up, and kind of, that's huge.
It was,
down by First Ave, the music venue.
Yeah, it was, I was in town. My wife was performing at Acme.
Mary Mac, you guys.
And, she was there for the Tim Slagle, writing exercise thing.
Oh, that writing exercise thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
whatever that show.
Do 20 minutes that you've never done before.
Yeah. Crash and burn. And, so she was performing there, but she stayed in the hotel because they were having like writing sessions, downtown. So she just stayed in the hotel one night. So she was already downtown, and I was out thrift shopping, as I do.
New show. And next episode.
I was in the changing room of a Savers thrift store.
Wow, old school Savers.
Yeah, and my phone went off, and it was my friend Wilson, and he said, "Hey, I've got bad news. I just heard Prince died," and so I was in the thing, and I said, "No, come on," and he was like, "No, it's true," and so I left, and I just got in my car, and I was really just stunned, and I just pointed my car towards First Avenue downtown. I said, I don't know why I have to go down to First Avenue, which is the iconic music venue where they filmed Purple Rain, and if you've ever seen Purple Rain.
Right.
So, it's kind of like,
by the way, I realized I did see in 84.
Yeah.
Or 82 or whatever.
Take another watch on it. Yeah. But, so I went to pick my wife up at the hotel, which was right near First Avenue. Mm-hmm. And we went to Whole Foods and got some flowers, and we went down to First Avenue, and we people just started to kind of gather. It was like an hour after the announcement. And,
wow.
And by then there was already a stack of flowers and guitars, and people had left personal notes, and people were standing around crying, and the police officers were already there, and they were just sort of like wondering how big this crowd was going to get. And then suddenly people just started walking, and then that began like probably a 3 or 4 day period of mourning, where there was just everywhere you went, people had their car windows down, and they were blasting the Current, 89.3, the local NPR music station. They were just blasting Prince songs, and they had, so everywhere you went, people were crying. Just walking down the street, you'd see people with their heads down and crying, and it was really emotional. And then that night they had an all-night dance party that went from, I think, midnight to 6 a.m, and they had, 1,000, maybe 20,000 people just flooded downtown, and
wow.
And musicians flew in from all over the country, and people were doing covers, and that went on for 2 nights.
Right.
And
just tribute stuff.
Tribute stuff. And then, it turned into a really emotional time, and people, I don't think people realized how close they were to Prince because he stayed in town. Like Bob Dylan, when he passes away, Minnesota, he's a Minnesota native, but I know when Bob Dylan leaves.
What's going to happen? Dinkytown's going to go on fire? I think not. He used to play in Dinkytown a lot.
Yeah.
So.
But he left, he went to New York in the early 60s and never really claimed Minnesota. And Prince was uniquely Minnesota in the sense that he would make references to it in his music. And
did he?
He called himself the Purple Yoda from Minnesota.
Oh, okay. And, where did he grow up? Did he grow up in Minneapolis?
He grew up in Minneapolis in several.
Did he go to South? What happened? Where did he?
Well, he grew up. I just went on a tour. I made my own sort of.
Oh, did you make a little tour?
Informal Prince grief tour.
All right. Well, tweet at Tim Harmston if you want to get that Google map.
Yeah,
you should put together like a Google map.
Well, they have. I mean, there are for visitors from out of town that want to come in and do the whole Prince thing. But he grew up primarily in the North Minneapolis.
Okay.
Until he was about 12, and then he had to leave his family's home. His father had some issues, as you would see in Purple Rain, the movie. It was very biographical, and he called up his friend Andre Simone and said, "I'm out of here. I'm leaving." And
at the age of 12.
At the age of 12, and he showed up and it was Andre Anderson. So he showed up at the Andersons and they took him in, and he lived downstairs in the basement, and where
did the Andersons live?
They lived about 4 or 5 blocks away.
Okay.
And so he just left his own house and moved in with his friends and
his friend's family.
And their family took him in, and she and the parents of his friend could see something special in his musical ability, so they got some instruments and set up some stuff downstairs. And then by the time he was 16, he was out playing. They had like a rec center where kids would go in the summer to play pool and ping pong and all that. And he would go, and they had some instruments. Somebody donated some instruments, so he would sit there and entertain kids from the neighborhood. And
he could play a lot of instruments.
They say about 27 instruments. Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and
did he do horns and? Like wind instruments?
Yeah,
or was it
I'm
mostly
sure
just strings?
It was, guitar, piano, drums, certainly any percussion instruments, keyboards, bass, of course, but by the time he was 19, that's when he got his first opportunity.
Right.
A local producer saw him playing out and negotiated a deal with Warner Brothers.
Oh, wow.
And the idea for the Warner Brothers record was that he would be his own producer. So he was 19 years old without a producer, making his first record for Warner Brothers, which is really amazing.
And what years? That was his first?
That was 1977.
Okay.
Yeah. And that record's called For You.
Okay.
And and there were other things that he did where he played with other local bands like 94 East and, what was the other? Champagne, I believe was the other band. But that stuff is really hard to find, really hard to come by. But his first label release was For You. But yeah. So going back to the Minnesota thing, people really lose track. I mean, he was easy to. Well, when he died, everyone said, "I have a story." I can tell my Prince story. And Tommy Ryman has a story about how he used to come into Barnes and Noble all the time.
Oh wow!
And
Tommy Ryman, a friend of the show, young comic, worked at Barnes and Noble for probably 12, 15 years.
Yeah.
And then what do you do? America's Got Talent or
Last Comic?
Yeah. Yeah, whatever. You can find him.
Yeah. But so Tommy would work at Barnes and Noble, and Prince would come in and ask to see. They'd get a stool for him to come, and he'd step on the stool, and then he'd go to the top shelf and look at all the guitar magazines.
Oh, okay.
And that was that. That people had. He was a superstar, a global superstar.
Yeah.
That lived in the community.
And went to Ace Hardware.
Yeah, and I always regret. I have such deep regrets that I never got to meet him out and about. I saw him several times at concerts.
Okay,
he would have
other people's concerts.
Other people's concerts. But and I think the most important story about his being a Minnesota resident was that he would open his house to people and have concerts. And so and they were open to the public. It wasn't like you had to be on some super secret list. They would make an announcement. Hey, there's a party at Paisley Park tomorrow night, and he called them listening parties. And so people, if you knew, you did have to kind of know. You'd have to be in the know, and you'd
have to be sort of a Prince nerd, dork,
yes, totally.
And hanging out with a lot of music people anyway.
Yeah,
but it could be done.
It could be done, and it didn't necessarily mean you were on the inside of the music scene or the party scene. There was some great stories of like the Minnesota Twins baseball players being at the party one time or newscasters. He would see someone on the news like Don Shelby or whatever, and he would just call the station and be like, tell Don to come over. I'm having a party tonight. Like he was very eccentric, but he would have a party and people would come in and there's no alcohol ever or no smoking or whatever, but you'd come in at 4 a.m. and he would set up and just start playing. And
wait, they would start at 4 a.m?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's a reason I was never invited when
yeah.
But you'd show up at 4, then you'd hang out for what, 4 hours and just kind of
jam.
Just listen to the jam and
and sometimes he would make people pancakes and
what?
Yeah.
And how many people were at this party?
Sometimes it was, however many he wanted, but sometimes it was a full, it was like
full, like as many as 200?
Yeah, hundreds maybe. And,
okay, but and as little as 20.
And as little as,
or
20. Or whatever he was trying to do. Sometimes he would just play piano. Sometimes he wouldn't play at all. Sometimes he would just put on dance music and people would dance.
Okay.
And he would DJ his own parties.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I had heard about this when I was in college in the late. Oh God, I hate saying that. In the late 80s.
Sure. At least you were in college in the early 80s, which was when I was in college.
But he, I'd heard a Prince fan and I were talking. He's like, yeah, man, Prince, like you can go to his house and party. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, you just go out there and I thought this was a myth, And then I moved to Minneapolis in the early 2000s. And sure enough, people would be like, what did you do last night? Oh, I went out to Prince's and danced all night. That's why I'm so tired or whatever. And I was like, I gotta do that. And I never did it. And then about 3 months before he died, I put on Twitter, I will buy a steak dinner
to
and
anybody.
pay for your ticket if anyone can bring me with to Paisley Park. I just want to go. And because I started comedy and I was touring and I never could like make plans.
Yeah.
I'd never buy concert tickets because I would be like, oh, I'll probably be out on the road or something.
Right.
So I never did get to go out there. And it was always a real bummer for me. That's a big regret. But it was just sort of really. That's why I think people were so sad when he died because they did lose a neighbor and
were there any like salacious stories that came out were people, I don't know why that word came up, but any hot orgies or any crazy, because he was Jehovah's Witness, I believe, right? In the end?
for in the end he was a J-dub.
Yep.
But he no, and there really wasn't, and that's the other thing I was going to talk about. Is that
here's the place?
Is that he was a real gentleman.
Okay,
he was mysterious as hell, and he had probably a lot of relationships with stars, but no one's ever said a bad word. Unlike and I hate throwing Michael Jackson under the bus, but all the salacious and kind of bizarre behavior that Michael Jackson.
He also had a weird house, but and then
Phil
he would
Spector and
right, right,
and all. Yeah, he never got the Hollywood bizarro vibe around him. It was always
maybe because he stayed in Minnesota.
Yeah,
he was like, you know what, I'm not going to do. I'm not going to go to New York or Hollywood or end up in Sun City and decide that I'm going to only own albino elephants or whatever the hell.
Yeah, and that's not to say he wasn't bizarre. I mean, if you go on YouTube and you Google Kevin Smith Kevin Smith, the director.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he has a great Prince lecture that he gave at a college. It's like a 4-part YouTube series. And
Where Kevin Smith speaks about Prince?
Well, Prince called Kevin Smith and said, "Will you come direct a movie, a documentary for me?" And,
Yeah.
And it's truly an amazing story. You've gotta watch it if you like Kevin Smith and
Prince. Together.
I won't reveal the details in case.
Because they made it clearly, right? Or they did something.
I'm not.
Yeah, you're not going to do it. No spoiler.
Just go to YouTube and type
Kevin
in
Smith Prince. Do it.
Kevin Smith Prince story.
And it's a 4-part story.
Yeah, I think it's 4 parts
Okay.
or 2 parts or something like that.
All right.
But also there's some, all the stories of his philanthropy are coming out now too, where he gave a lot of money to people anonymously.
Sure.
And I read a story recently where he was up late at night at like 4 a.m. He would call people. 4 to 6 in the morning was when you would get a call from Prince if you were in his circle.
For some reason.
Yeah, and he never had a cell phone because he never had pockets.
Oh.
He would.
Is that why?
Yeah, he would go to like Caribou Coffee in Edina or wherever.
Yeah.
And he would ask his bodyguard to give him $100 bill, and then he would give that to the Caribou employee, and then he would just say keep it because he didn't have any pockets for change or anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but he was up one night watching it. I don't know if it's CNN or what the network was, and there was a story about a lady in Massachusetts who wanted to build a homeless shelter, but she was having trouble raising the funds. So Prince called his assistant and said, "Hey, call CNN, find out who that person is, and I want to give them the money to finish their homeless shelter project."
Yeah.
Or he would give. He was really interested in helping. He was really interested in the Black Lives Matter movement, as that happened right before he died, but he was, active in that and he was getting more outspoken politically. Right. And, there's just numerous stories of his charity.
It's, the Black Lives Matter thing is fascinating because, even if Hillary had won electoral college wise, we know she won the popular.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
almost 3 million.
But even if there's so much work to do anyway, just because of the advent of the Apple camera that allows me, who has always been a giant pinko commie and supposedly super supportive, to know no. Now I know no because somebody I'm forced every 2 days to see a video where somebody murders a black person and gets away with it. Yeah. So I was like, the Black Lives, there's...
Well, it's
because they seem not to matter. That's why the thing was created. That's why someone had to say it. Oh, Black Lives Matter because it seems like nobody does care. So we thought we'd pipe up and just point it out. Is that all right?
Yeah. No.
So that's great that Prince started getting more political.
Yeah. He was supportive of that but going back to your point, he never really ever had a bizarro, weird incident except, and everyone thought that he lived a very clean lifestyle. And of course he had an addiction to painkillers.
Well, wasn't he? So I heard somebody say, "Well, isn't he always landing on his knees?" Yeah. Of course, he was in pain. And then once you start, those pills are incredibly addictive. I'm told.
Yeah, and that's the conclusion was that he had hip trouble because he jumped off so many pianos and stacks and during his concert. And if you watch his videos, you'll see him doing the splits and doing these ridiculous.
It's a lot of physical.
Yeah,
super physical.
Yeah, and so he had, he was in his late 50s, so he had hip trouble, and presumably he was relying on painkillers for that pain.
And so I did not follow what they decided was that he accidentally overdosed or he purposely overdosed. They don't know.
It seems like it was an accidental overdose.
Yeah,
but it was. The drug was called fentanyl, which is pretty dangerous or it's a pretty dangerous painkiller.
Right.
And I don't know if they made a determination if it was like that maybe the pills were in the wrong bottle. And he might have taken more than he thought he did.
Well, this terrifies me, the idea of ever taking pills. I have a hard enough time taking Advil. So it's, though when I get a cold, I am slightly too excited to take nighttime NyQuil.
I thought you were going to say
Slightly.
yeah.
What do you think I was going to say?
Alka-Seltzer.
I love the nighttime Alka-Seltzer as well.
Yeah.
It's, I'm a little too, I have to very much, do I need it? Am I having trouble sleeping during the cough? Or am I just, who wants to check out? Jaycation, that's who.
I had a, this is unrelated, but I live in Minnesota and it rained here in LA last night. And I walked by a convertible car on the street that was kind of filled with water.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. And I had it made me kind of feel good.
Did you get yourself
I don't know why.
A little bit of negative, like a little Freud and shit.
Yeah,
whatever.
it was Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, like I looked at it, I was like, ha ha.
Yeah.
Because every day we're
it's 4 below.
4 below zero,
and it's freezing, and you have to walk tiny steps.
Yeah.
Or wipe out and lose a tooth.
Yeah, it made me feel good. So, I don't know why.
It's what I'm pretty excited about. I had also unrelated. Pardon me. Sean Crespo was on the program.
Oh, yeah.
You know Sean.
Yeah.
He was a Dune dork. And so I texted him last night asking him which Dune book was the one where there was plenty of rain.
Yeah.
Like when Dune turned into a lush paradise.
Yeah.
And I tried to tweet that and I got a lot of not answers, right? From the hive mind did not know because everybody's just seen the movie.
Right.
But Sean Crespo sent me, I'm not even kidding, an 800-word text back.
Wow.
Just explaining the politics and what happened with the people and then briefly what he was doing and how glad he was to have received this question.
Yeah. Wow. So how many are there a series of Dune books?
Oh yeah, there's got to be 10 or 11.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Frank Herbert and then I think his son wrote the last of them. And I think I read either the first 3 or the first 5.
Yeah.
And I did not know this, and the Dune episode of the Dork Forest is an excellent episatode, if you ever are interested in Dune.
Yeah.
But it turns out that the whole series is not a story about, Paul Atreides and him turning into the Messiah.
Yeah.
It's the story of the Bene Gesserit and the political empire, universal empire politics of this ancient religion.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
I never got that far. I was like, no, he had kids.
I checked out. After he got the minivan, I was out of there.
Right. I was like, well, what's the gas mileage? I don't care. I can't.
Isn't Andy a big Dune guy?
He likes Dune. I don't know that he's probably not read the same.
Yeah.
He might have read more. I mean, it's weird. Sometimes I think that he's going to be a huge dork for something and know more about stuff.
Yeah.
And he does. But other times, I mean, you can't know everything, and the depth of knowledge of, especially with sort of science fiction and literature itself.
Yeah,
we're all screwed.
Yeah,
there's no way to know it all.
Yeah, well, it's like content these days with just Hulu and Amazon and Netflix, and it's like how does anybody absorb all this?
Right?
Like,
how can you keep up?
People will drop a reference like, well, remember in Nurse Jackie when that character, I was like, I'm 7 series behind in my watching. It took me 15 years to get through The Sopranos. And I'm just starting the Mad Men and
Sure, Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
You're going to keep, I watched, I think the first 2 seasons of Breaking Bad and I was like, oh, this is never going to get better. I watched the first season and a half of Mad Men and I was like, I don't like any of these people. I love the ad campaigns.
Yeah.
And then, The Sopranos, I never watched the second Godfather.
Wow.
Because I saw the first Godfather
really good.
and I was like, oh, this relationship isn't going to work out. He doesn't trust her. And at which point, the thing is part of it is that my brothers love The Godfather with The Power of the Sun. And just to be contrary, I'm not going to watch The Godfather.
Yes.
It's why my brother Russ will not watch Midnight Run. I love Midnight Run. It's a great buddy movie with De Niro and Charles Grodin.
Yeah.
It's a great buddy movie. Anyway, he's like, I'm never watching it because you love it so.
That's such, by the way, for those of you who don't know, that's such a Midwest passive-aggressive way.
So sibling, full of bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would love Midnight Run. And he's like, you would love The Godfather too.
Yeah. Like that'll be on your gravestone. Never watched Godfather 2.
I'll show you guys. King of Comedy blows. I'm not doing it. It looks terrible.
The King of Comedy?
It looks super tense. The King of Comedy.
I love that movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've seen most of The Godfather. I'm good. It'll be fine.
He'll be all right. Yeah.
I never saw the third prequel of the Star Wars movies either.
Yeah, don't get me going on that.
All right. But what about, so the music in Batman, what was the hit?
Bat Dance.
Bat Dance.
Yeah.
Well, I have to look that up because I did not know that he did the Batman.
Yeah.
The Batman, and my favorite Batman, quite honestly. It had the good, Joker was super creepy.
Danny DeVito.
Oh no, that was the Penguin.
The Penguin.
But it was Jack Nicholson, wasn't it?
Yeah, Jack Nicholson was the Joker.
Was Danny DeVito in that one as well as Yes, he was.
Yeah.
I was blown away by Jack Nicholson. I thought that he was so creepy and
great.
really nailed it.
Yeah.
And Michael Keaton was good.
Yeah.
I like that Michael Keaton stepped away from that role as well.
Yeah.
Because,
well, I have to say, like, I never jumped on board with a lot of the current Batman and Batman versus Superman and all that because I loved that Batman in I think it was 1988.
The 60s?
Yeah.
Or the 88?
I love the TV show with,
Yeah.
Adam West and all that stuff. But the CGI of the new movies kind of, I don't know why it doesn't sit that well with me, but I loved the Jack Nicholson Batman because it was kind of like, I mean, there's still effects in it, but it was like pre-massive CGI.
Right. It was mostly just rubber masks and glue.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
With a glue gun and had some serious work ahead of it.
So it feels contemporary, but it still feels kind of like hokey, like the TV show in some ways.
But the cartoons are great. I thought the cartoons they capture both. I mean, the darkness of the Batman movies, which I think the one where Mark Hamill plays the Joker. Yeah, I can't remember the name of the series, but it was a Batman series.
Yeah.
And I am genuinely looking for. I don't know why we're talking about Batman now, but I'm really looking forward to the Lego Batman.
Yeah,
it's coming out in a couple weeks. Yeah, it looks amazing.
Is there a big pre-order on that? It's a movie.
It's a movie.
Oh, it's not a cartoon.
No.
Okay.
Well, it's a cartoon because it's the Lego.
Legos.
It's a Lego movie.
It's not a live action Lego.
Right. It's not real Lego characters. It's not being played by Optimus Prime as a Lego.
Yeah. Well, someday
someday we'll meet those guys.
Yeah. Well,
they're real.
Someday we're going to consolidate every single franchise into one franchise. It'll be Disney presents the Star Wars Lego Batman movie.
Oh, but just think, the closest I thought that it ever came was that last scene in Roger Rabbit.
Oh yeah.
You ever see Roger Rabbit?
Bob.
Yeah, Hoskins.
Bob Hoskins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but in the end, like Mickey Mouse was there and Bugs Bunny standing right next to Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what peace is.
Yeah.
This is the real world.
Could use a little bit more of that right now.
Where the Roadrunner can eat next to the
Tom and Jerry can have a cup of coffee.
Finally, with that sheepdog.
If I'm ever back on the Dork Forest, I'd love to get into the Warner Brothers cartoons and the Hanna-Barbera cartoons sometime.
Okay.
Have you done that one yet?
I did probably 10 years ago with a guy who ends up, he writes cartoons now.
Okay.
And he was a young comic. Marlon? That's not his name. Doesn't matter. But it's been a decade. So yes, it's available.
I was in Columbia College, I went to film school
in Chicago.
And one of my first classes that I took was the history of animation.
Okay.
And it was I think it was 8 or 9 a.m. on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. And kids would come in. We'd be in like our pajamas, our hoodies and pajamas, and then we'd just walk over from the dorm in our and
watch cartoons on Saturday mornings
and bring snacks and watch cartoons. And,
wow.
And, you know, and
That's kind of perfect. That's when that class needs to happen.
It was like, this is college? And it was.
That's a great college. It's
a great school. Yeah.
Yeah. They'll let anybody in, but it's really hard to graduate because they're like, no, it's actually a college. You have to actually learn things and do your homework.
That's where Pat Sajak went.
Well, there's a claim to fame. It's my brother Scott has taken a billion photography classes there.
Oh, really?
So yeah,
it's a great school.
He loved that. So what? But you want to go Warner Brothers? Or you want more Prince?
More
like
Prince.
what are your favorite albums? What are your favorite?
Okay. Well, let's talk about that. Just if you're
like if I wanted to start.
Yeah, if you want to start, I mean, first of all, go watch Purple Rain again.
The movie.
It doesn't hold up in a few ways. It's very 80s, like, you know, all those 80s, like all the
music video-y kind of
music video-y type way. But you can get a sense for star power, like, oh, this guy is a real, this was his thing, you know, like this was
entirely his vehicle, right?
Entirely his vehicle. And it's very
Who directed it?
Albert Magnoli, who I don't know what else he's done other than that, but yeah, start with Purple Rain and then work your way into the in succession. Maybe go to a Parade and Around the World in a Day. Around the World in a Day was the follow up to Purple Rain. And people say, well, that was their their Yellow Submarine kind of Strawberry Fields feel, like had kind of like a acidy vibe. But and then get to Parade, which was a movie, or it's the soundtrack to Under the Cherry Moon, which is all of his movies after Purple Rain flopped
pretty hard.
Yeah, really hard. So, but Parade, I think, is probably his second best album. And then Sign of the Times is kind of considered his opus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Sign of the Times, in my opinion, is probably the most, I think it's probably the most significant work of his. And it met some commercial success. The title track, Sign of the Times, we all remember.
Right.
But then he made a live concert movie, and if you're interested in Prince, go seek out the Sign of the Times concert movie. It's one of the most amazing demonstrations of all of his talents, dance and conducting and choreography, and he plays a lot of instruments on stage. And they recorded that in, I think it was the Netherlands.
So what year are we? So
Sign of the Times is 1987.
Was 87. Mm-hmm. So this is the golden age you're talking about.
This is in the sweet spot. This is when he was still commercially popular, but also doing his own thing.
Right.
And then I think after Sign of the Times, he really just branched out into, like I said before, just sort of like, it became almost all the true fans went with, and then a lot of the, you know, other.
A lot of people just sort of fell off.
Kind of fell off. Yeah.
But was that when he changed his name to a symbol?
He changed his name to a symbol, and that was in the early '90s, and that was because of a disagreement with Warner Brothers. Yeah, he wanted to own his own music, and he felt that Warner Brothers wasn't promoting his records the way he wanted them to be promoting.
Okay.
And I think Warner Brothers was like, probably had their hands tied, because they were like, well, he's making so much content that it's hard to package these things as albums. And,
what do you pick?
Yeah,
what do you pick to promote?
And here's a good example, like Michael Jackson. Like, how many albums did he do after Thriller? Not that many, you know, like Bad. Yep. And then what was the one with the animals and all that stuff?
I don't know. But he did hold on to his content a lot tighter.
A lot tighter. Yeah. Yeah. And that, I think, is like the difference between Michael Jackson and Prince, is that Prince was like, I've seen the mountaintop with Purple Rain.
I've seen pop stars. Yeah. I can see what pop stardom is like.
Yeah.
And I don't care.
I'm going to retreat back to Minneapolis. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to do.
Right. And was it jazz? What the hell was he doing?
Everything. His He's spanned everything. He did an acid jazz album. He did,
which is instrumental.
Yeah, kind of instrumentally.
Okay.
And then he would do, and then when Diamonds and Pearls came out, or they called it, what did they call it? New Jack, or it was kind of like the beginning of rap and hip hop together. And he did like some of that in the early 90s, and then he did. Then he did some gospel-y type stuff. Okay. And then he went into the Jehovah thing, and he started singing a lot more about faith and spirituality. Right. And then the best part, the part that makes me smile the most, is that at the very end, he was with a band called Third Eye Girl, which were three female musicians. I think they're from the UK. Okay. I don't know much about them, but they were hard rockers. And so he had this very metal sound, like almost like a yeah, like a yeah, like a Metallica sound almost. Yeah. If you look at some of his
so those are the albums from like the last 5-10 years?
Yeah. He did one album, I think it was called Plectrum Electrum, and it was with Third Eye Girl, and it was very, very metal. And he would take like Let's Go Crazy, and he would just break it down into like this deep, funky metal. And it was just like, and throughout the entire, and then he did a lot of big band stuff. Really? We'd bring in a lot of big brass sections. He did a great show at the Hollywood Bowl that I regret that I missed. That it was like just a huge horn section, and there.
I love it when they do that.
Yeah, and then and also at the very end, he did just his last tour before he died was just him and his piano. So he did several cities, and I think Atlanta was the final stop, and he
stripped down to just him and his piano.
Him and his piano, and then he on the way home he had his medical emergency in Illinois, and then a few days later he passed away. But there was, and this is sort of, I'm not being hyperbolic. Is that the word? Hyperbolic?
Sure.
There probably never was a musician with the kind of dexterity or
he seems to have an amazing range
of dance, composition, writing, live
I think
performance.
It's why he's compared to Bowie, and how weird it was that Bowie died as well, because Bowie also had that time in the sun. Yep. That pop stardom, and then was like, no, I'm going to keep writing, but I'm going to do it over here in England, and who cares? Yeah.
And ultimately, I think that's who you respect the most, because they're not driven by money as much as they're driven by
the need
an artistic
to create.
quest.
Yeah.
And Prince was definitely on that quest, and he was really, really driven to create art. And
have you read any of his biographies or anything? Are there a million? Nobody's written a biography?
Well, he was working on an autobiography before he died, and it never got completed. And there are some books out there, but with his limited, he didn't speak to the press. Okay. He didn't give interviews. He the amount of interviews he's given, he gave one to Rolling Stone in 1985, and then he gave one to, I think, Rolling Stone again in 1990. And he didn't give a lot of interviews. And later on, he went on. He'd go on Tavis Smiley or Oprah, or I think he went on Ellen, Arsenio Hall.
So he's done a couple of different panel-y shows.
Yeah. He does have some appearances, but there wasn't a lot. He would never sit down and give the goods to a writer. So
and you wonder what, why that was. I mean, was he just sick of talk? He's like, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to do it.
Early on, he felt he got misquoted a lot, or people would take him out of context. And so he would.
So he didn't
want to talk to the press, and and if you did talk to him, he would make sure that you don't have any recording devices or notepads. So you had to just sit down and talk to him without anything to write with. And there's a story about a reporter who was interviewing him, and and the reporter said, "Oh, excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom." And he went and he would write notes on toilet paper and he'd put it in his pocket, and then he'd come back and continue the interview. He'd be, "Oh, excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom." And then he went to the bathroom like
He
30
get caught?
times. No, and then, but he thought that Prince kind of knew what he was up to,
Yeah.
he went to the bathroom like 30 times in an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, I don't know. I just, it's really, coming from Minnesota, it's really a real, it feels like a real personal loss, and it was really good to talk about it today. So
yeah.
thanks.
What are your favorite, I don't know, are there songs in the last couple albums that were, that were particularly,
Well, I really enjoyed the work that he did with Third Eye Girl.
okay.
The metal stuff. And if you go on to YouTube, and he got the Billboard Icon Award.
Okay.
And he did like a kind of like a mashup, and that's on YouTube now. That's really worth checking out.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking that,
I haven't downloaded everything. Like, I only have about 14 of the 38 albums.
right, there's a lot of albums. It said that when I printed the discography, it said 43.
Yeah.
It said 43 albums.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't know what those other 5 albums are.
Right.
But,
What I should mention too that he was certainly prolific with his own material, but he also contributed to the success of other artists too that a lot of people don't know about, like Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah.
Nothing Compares to You. That's a Prince song.
okay.
And the Bangles, Manic Monday. That's a Prince song.
So he wrote those songs for them?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes he would write them for an artist.
Yeah.
Like Shaka Khan, he would write songs for.
Okay.
And I Feel For You, that big Shaka Khan hit from.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was him.
Well, that's right. That vaguely sounds familiar, is that he wrote other people's hits.
Yeah.
That he wrote other songs that other people covered that he didn't do.
Yeah.
That became number one.
Yeah, or a lot of times,
Billboard
like I think
stuff.
Nothing Compares to You, I think he did that on a side project, but it wasn't a hit, but then he wanted Sinead O'Connor to do it. And
Okay.
So she made it a hit.
And then it hit.
And Sheena Easton.
Wow.
And, his tree, his family tree of
artists that know artists that know artists.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's how every job works. It doesn't matter if you're a plumber.
Yeah.
You're like, if you need an extra plumber, you know a guy. And if that guy can't do it, that guy knows a guy.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I trust that guy.
Yeah.
And that guy trusts you. So now.
Yeah.
Let's see what you got to offer.
Yeah. And, and he really had a real, impact in helping other artists.
Yeah, nice sense of family. And
Yeah.
I think that comes from him staying in Minnesota as well, right?
I think so, yeah.
So did he ever reconcile with his folks, or?
I
don't remember
his
Purple
dad
Rain.
died. I think, I don't really know. I mean, he's got a sister that he's he was very close with.
Well, that's neat.
And I don't know what his relationship with his parents, obviously his dad and him had a strained relationship. His dad was a jazz musician and worked at a factory in Minnesota in the 50s. And his mom was a social worker. Okay. And but they were a musical family.
Yeah.
But I don't know how long they lived.
And how that resolved.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's hours available to talk about Prince.
Yeah.
And definitely different angles. I like this angle of the artistic, creativity part that we've gone on to.
Yeah.
Because, different, like Jimmy Pardo, we went through the albums and
Really?
so, and there's different, and those are all great too, because I don't know anything about anything. So
yeah,
let's start somewhere. And I love that this was a journey. So thanks so much for doing the show.
Yeah, I'm glad to come on and talk about it. So.
All right. People go at Tim Harmston and timharmston.com. And he's a great comic, and you should find him doing the talking out of his joke hole. You know the rules, everybody. Rangers, take care of each other out there.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat. My hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?